Hey everyone, today we are going to be dividing multi-digit whole numbers. When we divide multi-digit whole numbers, we are going to use the 4 steps to divide, multiply, subtract, and then bring down. First, we're going to talk about a little bit of vocabulary. So the number that is doing the dividing is called the divisor. So this is the one that does the dividing. We have the dividend, which is the number being divided. And then we have the quotient. And the quotient is the answer. When we divide multi-digit whole numbers, there's 2 different examples that we're going to do. Okay, we have the examples that have no remainders, and then we have ones where we have to annex zeros. So here we're going to have no remainders, so everything is going to come out with a happy 0 at the end. And then down here, annexing zeros means that we're going to continue beyond the original number. So normally we would have our answer with a remainder of something. We are no longer going to have that. We are going to have a decimal answer. So I'm going to make this nice and big. Okay, you guys are allowed to use your multiplication chart during this, so don't be afraid to do so. So first I'm going to set up my long division. So 12 into 25,740. I know that 12 does not go into 2, so I'm going to look at 12 into 25 right away. And 12 goes into 25 2 times. So above the 5, I'm going to put a 2, and it's really important that you keep your work nice and organized during this. So now I'm going to multiply. 12 times 2 is 24, and then I subtract. 25 minus 24 is 1, and then I bring down the 7. So now I'm looking at 17. How many times does 12 go into 17? Well, it goes in 1 time. 1 times 12 is 12, and I subtract. 17 minus 12 is 5. Bring down the rest, so 54. How many times does 12 now go into 54? Well, I get really close at 12 times 4. 12 times 4 is 48. I subtract. 14 minus 8 is 6. And then I'm going to bring down my last one, 0. 12 times 5 is 60. And I get my nice happy face 0 at the end. This is an example with no remainder. So I finished dividing. My answer comes out as a 0. So 25,740 divided by 12 is 2,145. Part B also has no remainder, so I'm going to set up my long division. 17 into 52,428. I know that 17 doesn't go into 5, so I'm going to look at 17 into 52 first. 17 goes into 52 3 times because 17 times 3 is 51. And then I subtract. 52 minus 51 is 1, and I bring down the 4. Now this one's a little bit tricky because 17 doesn't go into 14. So if it doesn't work, it goes in 0 times, and I have to bring down 2 numbers in the same step. So now it's going to be 17 into 142. Now you can use your multiplication chart here. And when I use my multiplication chart, I'm going to look at 17, and I'm going to say, how close can I get to 142? If I go over to 17 times 8, I get 136. That's as close as I'm going to get to 142. So you may use your multiplication chart to help you with some of these. So I'm going to have 17 times 8 above the 2, and I get 136. And then I subtract. 142 minus 136 is going to be 6. And then I bring down the 8. And then again, in my chart, I can look, or I can try some multiplication. If I look at my multiplication chart, 17 times 4 is 68. And I have no remainder. So 52,428 divided by 17 is 3,084. These are, again, problems with no remainder. So when you're finished with your division, you're going to have that nice smiley face down at the bottom, nice whole number answers. Down at the bottom here, we're going to be annexing zeros. So we're going to be adding zeros after the final digit of the number to have a decimal answer. So no more remainders, we're going to have decimal answers. Everyone should notice that 64 is kind of big. So it's not going to be in your multiplication chart, so you're going to have to do some multiplication on the side, and I will show that as I do it in this video. So I'm going to set up my long division, 64 into 5,272. When I look at my first two digits, 64 does not go into 52. So it doesn't go into 5, it doesn't go into 52, so I'm going to go all the way over to 527. And I need to figure out how many times 64 goes into 527. Well, if I try to estimate and say, well, 64 is close to 60, and 9 times 60 is going to be 540. So I know somewhere around the 789 mark, 540 is going to be too big. So if I try 8, 64 times 8, I'm going to move it over a little bit. 64 times 8. 8 times 4 is 32, carry the 3, 8 times 6 is 48, plus 3 is going to be 51. So 512, that's pretty close to 527, and if I do 64 times 9, it's going to be too big. So my first one is going to be 8. So 8 times 64 is 512, and then I subtract. So 7 minus 2 is 5, 2 minus 1 is 1, and then I'm going to bring down the 2. So now I want to know how many times 64 goes into 152. Let's try 64 times, let's try 3. 3 times 4 is 12, carry the 1, 3 times 6 is 18, plus 1 is 19, so 192 is too big, so we're going to go with 2. 64 times 2 is 128. And then I subtract. So I'm going to borrow here. 12 minus 8 is 4, and 4 minus 2 is 2. Now this is the part where it changes. So usually we would stop and say, well, 82 with a remainder of 24. Now we're going to continue our division. So I'm going to have a point here, and I'm going to put a point on top of my division symbol. And I'm going to add a 0 and say I can now bring down this extra placeholder digit and make it into 240. And I want to know how many times 64 goes into 240. Well, I know 64 times 3 is 192, so let's try 64 times 4 just to see if it works with 240. So 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So 64 times 4 is too big, so we're going to go with 3. So I've got 192, and then I subtract. So I was looking at these 3 digits. So I'm going to borrow. 10 minus 2 is 8. 13 minus 9 is 4, so I've got 48. 64 can't go into 48, so I'm going to add another 0 and bring it down. I want to know how many times 64 goes into 480. Well, I know that 64 times 8 is 512, so let's try 64 times 7. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 6 is 42. Plus 2 is going to be 448. So that's as close as I'm going to get because 8 is too big. So 7. So 448. And I subtract. So again, I was looking at 480 here. So 10 minus 8 is 2, 7 minus 4 is 3, and I'm going to bring down one more 0. So I want to know how many times 64 goes into 320. Well, I know that times 4 is 256, so let's try 64 times 5. 5 times 6 is 30, carry the 3, or 5 times 4 is 20, sorry. We're going to do 5 times 4 is 20. And I'm going to carry the 2. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 2 is going to be 320. Look at that. When I subtract, I get that lovely 0 that I've been waiting for. So I'm going to have a 5 on top here. So 5,272 divided by 64 is 82.375. Again, this is called annexing zeros because I'm going beyond the last digit of the given dividend in order to get no remainder. Okay, last one is 5,287 divided by 340. So again, a pretty big number. We're going to do some side multiplication. I can't look at the ones, or sorry, the thousands, the hundreds. I have to look all the way to the tens place here to make sure that 340 is going to work. 340 goes into 528 one time. So 8 minus 0 is 8. 12 minus 4 is 8. And 4 minus 3 is 1. 340 does not go into 188, so I'm going to bring down the 7. 3 times 6 is 18, so I'm going to try 340 times 6 and see what happens. So 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20, so that's too big. So let's try 5. 340 times 5. So 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. Carry the 2. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 2 is 17. So I'm going to do 5. And I've got 1,700. And we're subtracting, so this one we used all 4 digits. So 7, 8, and 1. And here's where we get funky, so we're going to add our decimal and extend our line. And I'm going to add a 0 because 340 does not go into 187, but 340 can go into 1,870. I know that 5 is 1,700 because I just did it right here, and I know that 6 is 2,040, so I'm going to use 5 again. And I've got 1,700, and I'm going to subtract. So there's my digits right there. So 0, 7, 1, and then I have one more 0 to add. And I've got 1,700. So we're going to use 5 one more time because I know that 5 times 340 is 1,700. And when I subtract, I get that no remainder. So 5,287 divided by 340 is 15.55. Your homework for this section is on page 141 of your textbook, and we are doing numbers 2 through 12, even only. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12 only. Good luck.